Welcome to another AP Human Geography topic walkthrough, brought to you by Mr. Michael, Social Studies teacher. This video is here to help you fill out your lecture notes, understand the big ideas, and maybe even laugh once or twice. So grab your notes and let's get started.
Okay, real talk. Everything you're eating right now? Corn dogs, sushi, iced coffee with way too much syrup? Yeah. None of that would exist without humans getting wild with farming about 12,000 years ago. Welcome to the chaos that is agricultural origins and diffusion. Behind the scenes of this scene, check out the colorful backdrop. You've got ancient farming terraces from Asia, Mesoamerican pyramids, livestock doing their thing, and even a drone crop spraying like it's 2026. This image is straight up farming past meets farming future. And yeah, those crops didn't just appear. They traveled, traded, and evolved through global diffusion. In this unit, we're talking major glow-ups, how plants and animals were first domesticated in places like the Fertile Crescent and East Asia, and how those original hearths sparked food revolutions that literally shaped civilization. Think rice in China, maize in Mesoamerica, and goats vibing in Southwest Asia. All of it started somewhere. And trust, once the food started moving, so did people, power, and culture. Get comfy, because up next, we're breaking down exactly what you're supposed to learn from all this. And yeah, there's a reason it includes the word global. All right, here's what you're supposed to learn. And don't worry, it's actually more epic than it sounds. First, we've got to figure out where humans first decided, you know what? Let's stop chasing animals and just grow stuff instead. These places are called agricultural hearths, birthplaces of farming and animal domestication. And no, it wasn't just one spot. From the Fertile Crescent to the Indus River Valley, from Southeast Asia to Mesoamerica, humans were out here inventing agriculture on different continents, sometimes at the same time, without ever meeting. Talk about a group project without Wi-Fi. Second, you've got to explain how plants and animals didn't just stay put. Through trade, migration, and conquests, and yes, stuff like the Columbian Exchange, crops, animals, and farming methods started globe-trotting. That's why you'll find bananas in Brazil, wheat in the US, and chilies in Thailand. Even though none of those started there, it's giving agriculture gone viral. And by the way, peep the cartoon scene in the background. It low-key summarizes all this. There's rice paddies, cornfields, cows, drones, even seed packets. That's thousands of years of farming innovation packed into one aesthetic farming multiverse. But where exactly were these agricultural ideas born? Let's zoom into the OG zones of farming genius. Let's talk about where the farming party really started, the hearths. No, not the fireplace kind. We're talking the geographic origin points where humans first started taming plants and animals like absolute legends. A hearth is basically the birthplace of an idea, innovation, or practice. In this case, it's where people looked at wild wheat and went, let's grow this on purpose. Boom! Domestication. And domestication? That's the glow-up moment where humans started selectively growing plants and raising animals to meet their needs. Whether it was rice paddies in Asia or goats chilling in Southwest Asia, humans were making nature work for them. It wasn't instant, though. This took generations of trial, error, and probably some extremely chaotic harvests. Now peep the ancient Egyptian image on the right. This isn't just some cool artwork. It's evidence. Evidence that humans in the Nile River Valley were plowing fields and planting seeds thousands of years ago. This was one of the earliest agricultural hearths, and that innovation would end up influencing farming practices for millennia. But Egypt was just one stop. Let's pull up the map and see the 8 global hearths where agriculture first exploded. And spoiler, they weren't just in one corner of the world. Okay, this map right here, it's the OG playlist of farming hotspots. The 8 original agricultural hearths where humans first figured out how to grow their own food instead of just chasing it around. We've got Central America and the Andean highlands holding it down in the Americas. These places gave the world crops like maize, potatoes, and beans. Basically everything you need for a Taco Bell menu. Then, over in Africa, you've got West Africa and the Nile River Valley. Think yams, millet, and ancient cows living their best riverfront life. Shout out to the Nile, one of the first big-time farming zones humans ever created. Now slide east, and boom. It's the Fertile Crescent, the so-called breadbasket of history. Then we move through South Asia's Indus River area, over to the Wei-Huang River Valley in China, and finally land in Southeast Asia, where rice basically became a lifestyle. Each of these zones birthed not just plants and animals, but full-on civilizations. No hearths, no harvests, no TikTok. Coincidence? Definitely. But still, speaking of the Fertile Crescent, let's zoom in on that region and see why it earned first place in the Agricultural Hearth Olympics. If farming had a Hall of Fame, the Fertile Crescent would be first ballot, no debate. Around 10,000 years ago, this Middle Eastern megazone, stretching from the eastern Mediterranean into Mesopotamia, became the VIP lounge for domestication. Think barley, wheat, oats, and rye, aka the gluten squad. Lentils and olives also joined the party because ancient hummus vibes were elite. But wait, we're not just talking crops. This region also raised the OG farm animals, sheep, goats, pigs, and cattle. Basically, if it shows up in your grain bowl or petting zoo, it probably started here. On the visual, you can see the Fertile Crescent shaded in gold across modern-day Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, and Israel. There's even a cartoon sheep and a trophy on the map. Because, let's be honest, this place won the agricultural origins game. But this wasn't the only hotspot cooking up innovation. Turns out another region was out here farming bananas, coconuts, and rice long before smoothie bowls made them trendy. Okay, lock in. Because this map is basically the world's first farmers group chat, and Southeast Asia was absolutely carrying the conversation. Around 10,000 years ago, people here looked at their warm climate, heavy rainfall, and river systems and said, yeah, this place is perfect for growing food on purpose. That's why this region lights up on the map. Out of this hearth came sugarcane for sweetness, rice for everyday survival, taro holding things down underground, coconuts doing everything from food to drink, plus mangoes, bananas, grapefruit, and tea. This wasn't luck, this was domestication, humans actively changing plants to meet their needs. Once food became reliable, people stopped moving around all the time, food surplus kicked in, populations grew, and societies started leveling up fast. Southeast Asia didn't just grow crops, it launched foods that would eventually spread way beyond this region and quietly end up on plates all over the world. And just north of here, another region was about to turn one single grain into a global lifestyle. This right here is East Asia pulling up and absolutely dominating with one grain. Around 9,500 years ago, people in this region figured out how to master rice. And once rice was domesticated, everything changed. Look at where this hearth sits on the map, along major river valleys with steady water and fertile land, perfect for flooded rice paddies. Rice became the backbone of daily life, not a side dish, the main character. Add in soybeans for protein and walnuts for nutrients, and suddenly you've got a farming system that could support huge populations. That food surplus meant people could settle permanently, specialize their jobs, and build complex societies that lasted for thousands of years. Rice wasn't just food, it became culture, economy, and survival all rolled into one, spreading outward as populations grew and farming knowledge moved with them. And while rice powered population growth in East Asia, another region of the world was proving that farming could succeed even without ideal conditions. This hearth proves that agriculture wasn't just for places with perfect rivers and mild climates. Around 7,000 years ago in Sub-Saharan Africa, people were farming in hot environments with unpredictable rainfall, and instead of copying anyone else, they adapted. Look at where this region sits on the map and notice the crops that come from here, because they're all built for survival. Millet and sorghum can handle drought, cowpeas add protein, yams grow underground where conditions are more stable, and African rice thrives in local wetlands. And yes, coffee starts here too, long before it became a global obsession. This is domestication driven by necessity, choosing plants that could survive environmental stress and still produce food surplus. That surplus supported permanent settlements and growing populations, even without the classic river valley setup seen in other hearths. Sub-Saharan Africa shows that agriculture was independently invented to match local realities. But across the Atlantic, another region was about to domesticate crops and animals that would completely reshape life in the Americas. Over here in Mesoamerica, agriculture popped off completely on its own. No copying, no outside influence, just straight innovation. Around 5,500 years ago, people in this region started domesticating plants that could handle tropical climates, uneven rainfall, and challenging terrain. Look at this area on the map, and notice how much variety comes out of one hearth. Maize, or corn, becomes the real MVP, not just food, but the foundation of entire civilizations. Beans team up with corn to add protein, chilies and peppers bring flavor and preservation, and crops like cassava, sweet potatoes, cotton, and tomatoes fill out daily life. This farming system produced reliable food surplus, which allowed cities, trade networks, and complex societies to grow long before contact with the rest of the world. What makes this hearth especially important is that all of this developed independently, proving agriculture wasn't a single invention spreading everywhere, but a human solution created again and again, which leads straight into the big idea that ties all these hearths together. All these different farming regions popping up on the map at different times might look coordinated, but they weren't. This is what geographers call independent invention, meaning people in totally different parts of the world all figured out agriculture on their own. No group chat, no copying homework. Different environments, same problem. How do we not starve? And somehow humans everywhere landed on farming as the solution. And even though these hearths were separate, they had a lot in common. Most of them formed near river valleys with fertile soil, steady water, and climates that weren't trying to end humanity every season. Farming worked best where people could cooperate, share labor, and organize society, because growing food is not a solo side quest. Once food surplus became a thing, populations grew, villages turned into cities, and civilizations started leveling up fast. The image here of the Huang He, or Yellow River, shows exactly why rivers mattered so much. Flooding brought nutrients, farming got easier, and people stayed put. Agriculture didn't just feed people, it changed how humans lived forever. And once farming worked this well in one place, it didn't stay put for long. Once agriculture proved it could actually work, it didn't stay local. It spread like a TikTok trend everyone suddenly jumped on. This map shows contagious diffusion, which is basically farming spreading the same way gossip does from neighbor to neighbor just by being close. Agriculture and animal domestication start popping off in the Fertile Crescent, and then farmers nearby see it working and say, "Wait, why are we not doing that?" So crops and animals slowly move outward into surrounding regions. If you look at the colors on this map, darker areas show where farming started earlier, and lighter colors show places that adopted it later. That gradual fade tells the story. Agriculture didn't teleport, it crept. People shared seeds, animals, tools, and farming knowledge through everyday contact. And over time, it spread through Turkey and into Eastern Europe. No mass migrations yet, just steady, close-contact diffusion changing landscapes one region at a time. But eventually people themselves started moving, and that took agriculture even farther. People didn't just spread farming by copying their neighbors, they straight up packed it in their bags and took it with them. This is immigration and migration diffusion, also called relocation diffusion, and it's basically ancient humans moving houses and bringing their entire kitchen setup along for the ride. As people migrated out of farming hearths, they carried seeds, animals, food traditions, and farming knowledge into brand new regions. This map shows that movement in action, with crops and animals like sheep, goats, cattle, and pigs slowly expanding outward as people settled new land. But here's the plot twist. Sometimes those crops pulled up to a new environment and struggled. Different climate, different soil, different vibe. Instead of quitting, farmers adapted, changing crops or farming methods using what they already knew, which is stimulus diffusion. Over thousands of years, this slow movement added up, agriculture spreading at about half a mile a year, which sounds tiny until you realize it reshaped entire continents. Farming didn't just travel through proximity anymore, it moved because people moved, and soon, trade networks were about to turn that slow spread into a full-blown global exchange. Once trade routes entered the chat, agriculture went from slow and steady to absolutely global. The Silk Road was basically the ancient world's longest group project, Over 4,000 miles of land and sea routes connecting East Asia to Europe, with everyone passing stuff along the way. Merchants weren't just trading silk and spices. They were accidentally spreading crops, animals, and farming knowledge every time they stopped to restock. Look at this map and you can see how these routes crisscross through Central Asia, the Middle East, South Asia, and into Europe, turning trade cities into cultural and agricultural hotspots. Plants and animals didn't spread just because neighbors copied each other anymore. They spread because traders carried them across huge distances, making agriculture jump regions instead of creeping slowly. This is contagious diffusion on a massive scale, powered by movement, money, and curiosity. By the time the Silk Road was thriving, food systems across continents were already starting to blend together. And the next big exchange was about to connect entire hemispheres in a way no one saw coming. This is where agriculture goes absolutely global and things get chaotic fast. In 1492, once Europeans crossed the Atlantic, the Columbian Exchange kicked off, and suddenly the Old World and the New World were trading way more than just vibes. Look at this map and follow the arrows, because crops, animals, and ideas are flying back and forth non-stop. The Americas send maize, potatoes, tomatoes, cacao, and tobacco across the ocean, and Europe, Africa, and Asia send back wheat, rice, sugarcane, horses, cattle, and pigs. Diets everywhere completely change. Like, imagine Italy without tomatoes or Ireland without potatoes. It's unthinkable now. But this exchange wasn't just food glow-ups. Diseases traveled too, and those had devastating effects, especially on indigenous populations in the Americas. Agriculture spreads faster than ever because continents are now connected, not just neighboring regions. The Columbian Exchange turns farming into a worldwide system instead of a regional one. And from here on out, agriculture isn't just spreading naturally. It's about to be engineered, industrialized, and scaled like never before. Welcome to modern agriculture, where farming goes from ancient vibes to full sci-fi mode. First up is the Green Revolution, and this is basically agriculture getting a massive software update. Scientists develop high-yield crop varieties that grow faster, produce more food, and spread around the world, especially in places like Mexico and India. Same land, way more food, which sounds like a win. And it mostly was, because it helped feed millions of people. But it also meant more fertilizers, more irrigation, and more human control over nature, like farming on hard mode but with cheat codes. Now zoom in on that graph, because the demand for meat is absolutely skyrocketing. As countries get wealthier and fast food spreads globally, people start eating more beef, pork, poultry, and eggs. Basically the McDonald's effect on a planetary scale. That means more livestock farming, more land used for animal feed, and way more pressure on the environment. Modern agriculture spreads through technology, corporations, and global demand, not just farmers copying their neighbors. Everything we talked about, from ancient hearths to global fast food, connects into one big system. But before your brain taps out, let's hit pause and recap how we got here. All right, speedrun recap time, because this unit had agriculture doing side quests all over the planet. Farming didn't start in just one place. It popped up independently in multiple agricultural hearths, because different groups figured it out on their own. From there, crops and animals spread through contagious diffusion when neighbors copied neighbors, relocation diffusion when people migrated with their seeds and livestock, and trade routes like the Silk Road where ideas and food traveled farther than any ancient group chat. Then the Columbian Exchange connected the Old World and New World, completely remixing diets, ecosystems, and populations on a global scale. Fast forward to modern times and agriculture spreads through science and tech, like the Green Revolution boosting crop yields, and global demand for meat skyrocketing thanks to rising wealth and fast food culture. Basically, agriculture went from local survival strategy to a worldwide system that shapes what we eat, how land is used, and who eats the most. And now that the whole story's on the table, it's time to decide which of these changes actually mattered the most. Okay, final boss unlocked, and this one actually separates the thinkers from the button clickers. Looking back at everything, from the first agricultural hearths to trade routes, the Columbian Exchange, and modern high-tech farming, which type of agricultural diffusion do you think has shaped today's world the most, and why? Was it migration carrying seeds across continents? Contagious diffusion where neighbors copied neighbors? Global trade networks connecting distant regions? Or modern science straight up upgrading crops like a software patch? This isn't a one-sentence take. You need real evidence and specific examples to prove your case, not just vibes. Drop your answer in the comments and back it up with examples. And don't forget to add your name for that bonus point.